What it's like to be me. Everyone talks to themselves. I can't stop. My internal dialogue is nearly constant. Only when I'm asleep or focused on something, like writing, does it cease or at least slow down. In fact, I have to take melatonin at night to sleep. It's the only thing that effectively quiets my brain so I can rest. I have whole conversations in my head, either with myself or someone else. It can be anything from rehearsing what I want to say to someone, imagining a scenario I'd like to occur, or thinking about what I wish I would have said the other day when I was looking for a clever response and came up blank. I also sometimes have debates in my head about politics, religion, metaphysics, or whatever I'm interested in thinking about at that time. I'll imagine my opponent's responses and see if I can counter them. Sometimes I will even challenge my own opinions to try to find the holes in my logic. All of this and more may be occurring between my ears at any given moment. If I appear to have that spaced out look on my face that some of my friends know well, you can be sure I am deep in my world. When I'm alone, I will sometimes pace back and forth through my apartment as I have these internal conversations. I am sure it would look most bizarre to anyone who saw it. They would probably think I had lost my mind and should be committed to the hospital where I work. To say that I live in my head, though, isn't even the half of it. Being me also comes with certain social deficits. I don't understand other people very well, and I'm sure they don't understand me. A lot of the rules of social etiquette, social cues, how to relate to others, that most people learn when they're 5, I've had to acquire slowly over the years. It's as if I'm from another planet and I'm having difficulty adjusting to life on Earth. I even wrote a poem called I'm an Alien from Neptune. If you can recall the show, Third Rock from the Sun, it's a bit like that. Since I'm not really from another world that I'm aware of, and I have been living on this one for the past 40 years, I am not quite as clueless as John Lithgow and his alien family. But if you can imagine that same feeling on a smaller scale, without the ridiculous extremes that made for the humor in that show, then you can get at least somewhat of an idea of what it's like to be me. Others have told me I make odd facial expressions at times. I think this is true. Sometimes I catch myself doing this, but I'm unaware of it. But often I'm unaware of it. Some have said I'm flat, or that I have a restricted range of affect, which is just fancy psychobabble for I'm not as expressive as others. Sometimes I'll have my hands together in front of my face, as if in prayer. I like to sit on my legs, or sometimes Indian style. In the 4th grade, my teacher made me stand at my desk because I wouldn't sit on my bottom. She just didn't understand. At times, I'll slowly rock back and forth when sitting. It's comforting and gives an outlet for my nervous energy. I also fidget a lot. No wonder I'm skinny. About 5th grade, my dad told me that my teachers had observed that if other kids seemed to be interested in something, I would not join them. Instead of being curious about what they were doing, I would just remain in my world, doing my own thing. More recently, I was telling him about my work with children with autism. I was explaining the characteristics of the disorder and remarked that a common trait was walking on the toes. He then replied, "Oh, you used to do that when you were little." That was an eye-opener. And apparently I still do it sometimes because I've had people tell me that I walk on my toes. I also have certain sensory issues. When I was little, my dad used to tickle torture my brother and I. Most kids like being tickled. It makes them laugh and feel good. I hated it. I would struggle with all my might to get out of his grip. I don't think he ever understood how painful it was for me. The truth is, it was sensory overload and I couldn't handle it. I have a sensitive nose too. Certain odors are overwhelming. One of my younger brothers used to burn incense in his room. I didn't find the odor unpleasant, it was just too much. I couldn't deal with the strength of the smell. Odors can also elicit strong emotional responses from me. They say that the sense of smell hooks right into the limbic system, which controls emotion. I would say that's true for me. One time in high school chemistry lab, we had to wear those plastic lab goggles. As I put mine on, it passed across my nose and smelled exactly like a medical oxygen mask. Instantly, I was transported back to the hospital, back to my recent surgery. I had to sniff the goggles again and make sure I wasn't losing my mind, despite the stares from classmates. I've since discovered saran wrap also smells like this. And oddly enough, this is a pleasant and even comforting smell to me now. Why that should be, I'm not sure. I also can't really I also can't deal with really loud noises, which may be surprising since I like to attend rock concerts. My secret is I always bring earplugs. One time I went to see the Killers and I forgot them. It was so loud I had to leave the auditorium. It was painful to my ears, I couldn't handle it. Fortunately, they were selling earplugs in the lobby along with the t-shirts, so I was able to put them in and go back and enjoy the show. I develop intense interests. I have since childhood. When I was around 11 or 12, I had a fascination with maps. I would draw my own maps all the time. Sometimes I would trace them from an atlas with tracing paper, but often I would just create my own. I invented my own country called Shea. I would draw roads, states within my country, rivers, lakes, and mountains. I would name various cities and towns. I even drew maps of some of those cities. I would name the buildings and attractions, draw where the airport was, and even draw in train tracks. I'd make it as complete a map as I could. I still have some of these maps. I could never bring myself to throw them out. When I was about 20, I developed an interest in astrology. I started with one book, and then I had to read another and another and another. Soon I had a computer program and was doing other people's charts. I learned all I could about my new fascination, the meaning of the planets, signs, houses, astrological aspects. Within a year, I could talk knowledgeably about all things astrology. Last page. I have since gone through a quantum physics phase, a mythology phase, a political phase, a post-punk music phase, various history phase, a YA fantasy phase, and now an Old English and history of early Britain phase. Each time I try to read as much as I can about my new intellectual obsession and talk as much as I can about to anyone who will listen. I know all this cuts me off from the rest of humanity, but I don't think I can stop, and I don't think I really want to. I think my life would be boring without my obsessions. I also regard myself as being special, and there's a part of me that really likes that and hopes it will never end. I think that I'd be worthless without it. But then again, there's also the allure of normalcy. Sometimes I feel like I would trade it all in for a normal life, for a chance to be like everyone else. There's a line in an episode of The X-Files where someone says of Mulder, "The great are often seduced by the simplest of things." I don't know if I'm great or not, but I can really relate to that sentiment. If someone offered me a Faustian bargain for those simplest of things, would I take it? Hard to say, but the temptation would be great. So this is my world, the world of what I believe is a high-functioning autistic spectrum disorder, formerly Asperger's, though my recent testing was inconclusive on that. It's still difficult, though, because I know that even though I have matured a lot, developed socially, and outgrown at least some of this disorder, I will never be fully in the world, and I will never be fully normal. So unless there's a magic cure one day, and assuming I'd want to take that cure, I'll never completely understand you, and you'll never completely understand me. Thank you.